Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Energy transition is expected to be high on the agenda during this year's Africa Mining Indaba, which starts tomorrow in Cape Town. This as there are growing calls for mines considered to be the biggest emitters to evolve and get with the program of decarbonisation. For more on this, we're joined now by Peter Major, who is the mining engineer. Very good afternoon to you. Welcome to Newzoom Afrika. Thank you for your time. Let's talk a little bit about the timing of this mining Indaba, coming at a time when the call for clean energy is more pronounced than ever, forcing mining houses to essentially evolve.
Sure, it's coming at a great time because this is Northern Hemisphere's winter, so almost everybody in the Northern Hemisphere is looking for a reason to warm up. And South Africa is well known as the best place to be in Africa if you want to get warm, if you want to have a lot of entertainment, and definitely if you want to touch on mining. I know Australians will beg to differ, maybe some countries in South America, but this is the mining Indaba to be in this time of year. And it's the first time we've had it in February since COVID hit in 2021, 2022. So I think we're going to have a really good attendance. Metal prices are up pretty good still. And as you mentioned, Positoli, the energy transition. How is Africa going to play a role in that? Producing alternative energy and utilizing alternative energy.
When it comes to matters of compliance and planning, what do you think it will take for South Africa to achieve the goal of transitioning towards the net zero emissions by the targeted year 2050?
Man, you're asking tricky questions. Those are the kind of questions we've been asking the politicians here for about the last 5-10 years. Because how well you comply and how well you plan is a big factor, two big factors, on how much foreign capital you can access. And nobody can run without capital. And almost no country can grow without capital, foreign capital. And China was a master of that. China's hauled in more foreign capital than anyone the last 20 years. And we should be hauling in, if we even got 2 or 3% of the foreign capital that was out there every year, this economy would be flying. So how we address those two questions, yes, foreigners want to see, are you complying and do you have a plan to comply? Because if the answer is even close to yes, then there's untold billions of dollars and hard investment, bricks and mortar investment that will come in this country. But people have been burned investing here now for the last 20 years. They're going to need real good assurance. They're going to need action, not just mealy-mouthed promises.
And as we perhaps assess the current energy challenges South Africa is facing, what more challenges do you think lie ahead for mining companies, especially considering the technology that's needed to manage emissions?
You're so right. Mining companies were probably the sole industry or the industry most responsible for the amazing infrastructural development this country had. Because mining companies needed good transport, they needed good roads, they needed water pipes, they definitely needed electricity, and they really needed railroads. And so our history of having very rich mineral deposits, having large mining companies that generated billions of dollars in taxes for 100 years. That's what built the infrastructure here. So it was a win-win. Mining needed that infrastructure, but so did the population need it. You know, so did our communities. So as long as we had a strong mining industry in a stable regime, we were able to generate lots of money that built a fantastic infrastructure.
Yeah.
Now it's going down for two reasons: less and less mining, and less stable regime, and misallocation of the money it does get.
Now, in your opinion piece, you make mention of how mines have been rewarded quite handsomely by some of what has been termed here as a commodity super cycle, and which you say was precipitated by global bottlenecks after Russia invaded Ukraine, causing an energy crisis. What does that mean for South Africa?
The bottom line is we have been in a commodity super cycle since 2003. And I was one of the skeptics on it. You know, I knew we were due for a boom in commodities by 2002, 2003. And when it pulled back in 2008, 2009, I thought, well, a 6-year boom, yeah, that's about normal. And it was a good one. But looking back on it, we've now had 20 years of booming commodity prices. So everybody that said we were in a super cycle these last 20 years, they were 100% right. We are in a super cycle, and we still are. Now, the super cycle prices haven't stayed for all the commodities, but they have for a lot of them. You know, gold, the base metals, certainly copper, the alternative metals like rare earths and lithium, and we've had little spurts of high oil price, crazy iron ore prices. So we're still in a super cycle. All of the commodities today are above their mean, their long-term average. And so that means all mining companies should be making pretty decent money, despite the legislative and the infrastructure challenges and the criminal challenges they've had. They're still making good money, and they've got clean up balance sheets so they can withstand more trouble, or they can make lots of big investments if the economic, political regime allows it.
Now, last year, industry leaders who attended the Mining Indaba raised some frustrations and highlighting some of the pressing issues, including, of course, the delays in the implementation of the plans by the Mineral Resources and Energy Department, and also speaking to challenges around infrastructure. What do you imagine to be some of the big pressing ones this year?
Unfortunately, it's the same big pressing issues. And when you've been complaining to the government at all your Indabas, and this isn't the only Indaba, it's the biggest one of the year. But when you've heard the same complaint for 10 and 15 years, and government has done nothing about it, you have to say either government doesn't want to do anything about it, or government is not competent enough to do it. And it's not the latter, because we've had some incompetent governments, more incompetent than ours, which is sometimes hard to believe, north of us, much poorer countries with corrupt and incompetent governments, but they've managed to clean up their mining licensing system. And ours has not been addressed. And there's no sign that it's been addressed. And it's not a big job to do that. So it means government, for some reason, is intentionally leaving our mineral licensing system as it is, which is opaque, confused, difficult, erratic, and that is killing investment here. And why would they leave it for 10 or 15 years? I think that's the answer everybody wants to hear at this year's Indaba from the mining minister and our president. Why have you left this so long?
Yeah. Very well. Thank you so much. Let's perhaps leave it there for now. Thank you for your time. Speaking there to Peter Major, who's a mining engineer, speaking to some of the questions that will come about as the Mining Indaba gets underway. Thank you for your time.